Hi there, my name's Tyler Garnes and I'm the founder and CEO here at Box Out Marketing. And I want to share with you 5 easy steps to improving email deliverability. This is an often very misunderstood topic. And when people's emails don't get clicked or don't get opened or don't end up in the inbox, they want to blame their email system and they blame email deliverability. When in reality, that's often not the case. So let's start with what is email deliverability? Email deliverability, technically, is the ability of an email provider to send an email and get it to the receiving server. For example, if I'm using Infusionsoft and I send email and the person I'm sending the email to is using Gmail, then the email is considered delivered if Infusionsoft gets a confirmation back from Gmail that they received that email. Now, does it end up in the inbox or the spam folder or the promotions folder? That's totally dependent on other factors. But was the email delivered to Gmail? Yes. So we need to keep that in mind. Email deliverability itself doesn't have a whole lot to do with open rates, click rates, or even ending up in the inbox. So what determines deliverability? Well, there's a lot of factors. Deliverability is determined by a handful of things. One is the reputation of the server sending the email. So again, if I'm using Infusionsoft, then Infusionsoft's email servers have a reputation. And if for some reason that reputation is bad, then email filters out there on the internet or the receiving email server might reject the email because the reputation of the server is bad. That's not generally the case with Infusionsoft, so we don't have to worry about that much. Now, the other thing is the reputation of the sender. My email address. If I'm sending email through Infusionsoft, my email address is the from email address, and that piece of the email also has a reputation. If I have a reputation of being a spammer, meaning that the spam filters out there have determined that I send a lot of spam, then my emails also might get filtered and never end up in people's inboxes. And then the last thing is the content itself. If my content is spammy or salesy or whatever and looks like spam, then the spam filters might filter out my emails as well. So let's go through the 5 steps to improving your email deliverability. These are: first, you got to get your technicals right. Then keep your content clean. Next, determine your baseline deliverability. Then improve engagement with clicks and replies and slip through the filters. So I'm going to go through each of those briefly and give you a quick understanding of what you need to do exactly in each of these steps to make sure you get the best deliverability possible. So the first thing is get your technicals right. You need to set up your SPF records and set up your DKIM authentication. Now, I'm not going to go through the details here of what that is because you can get step-by-step instructions at help.infusionsoft.com. Go to help.infusionsoft.com, search SPF, follow the instructions. Then search DKIM, follow the instructions. The DKIM authentication, there's also a step inside your Infusionsoft account that you need to take care of. So you go to your main menu, go to Marketing Settings, then click on Email Authentication and follow the steps there. In a nutshell, what the SPF records and the DKIM authentication are all about is authenticating your email address with the server. You see, if I send email from Tyler at boxoutmarketing.com, but it's being sent from Infusionsoft, well, a receiving server might look at that and say, wait, boxoutmarketing.com is not the same as Infusionsoft.com. There's a mismatch there. Someone might be trying to do something nasty. And so by setting up these SPF records and the DKIM authentication, we're basically setting up all of the required technicals to tell the receiving servers, hey, Infusionsoft says it's okay to send email from this particular domain. Okay, so these are essential required steps. Now, is this going to make all of your emails end up in the inbox as soon as you set this up? No, it's not, but it's going to improve your chances. So you want to make sure that if you do nothing else, that you set up your SPF records and your DKIM authentication. Okay, next, keep your content clean. All right, your content is one of the biggest factors of determining whether your emails end up in promotions folders or spam folders, etc. It might be delivered according to the definition of deliverability, but it's going to end up somewhere other than the inbox if the spam algorithms determine that your email message is promotional or spammy or salesy. Okay, so there are a lot of theories and misunderstandings out there on the content. I'll just clear this up right now that using the word free will not get your emails into spam or even into promotions. That alone will not necessarily do it. But if you use free a lot or you use very promotional language, you're going to have higher chances. So the spammier or the salesier your copy gets, the more likely you are to end up in the promotions folder or the spam folder or to get caught completely by spam filters. So also, don't make your email all one big image. This is a tactic that spammers used to use when they realized that, hey, the spam filters can read our content. And since they can read our content and our content says something about Viagra, then I'm going to go ahead and not have any text at all. I'm just going to put one big image in there, and the image is going to be a screenshot of the copy that I wrote. That way, the spam filters won't be able to see the copy that I wrote, right? Well, the spam filters, of course, quickly picked up on that and realized, hey, if you've got one big image in your email and no copy, then that's going to be a problem. All right, bottom line, don't do things spammers would do. In your copy, just read through it. If it sounds spammy, then you need to change it. Just be cool and normal, and you're generally going to be fine. Okay, next, determine your baseline deliverability. Now, this isn't really deliverability, but you'll understand what I mean here in a second. What you need to do is determine what's your open rate on your first email immediately after opt-in. See, here's the problem. People come to me all the time and they say, oh man, my deliverability is terrible. I send out my broadcast and my open rate's only 8% or whatever it might be. And so they're trying to tell me that the deliverability is bad. Well, that's not necessarily the case. In those same situations, what I've done is gone into their account and looked at the very first email that gets sent when someone opts in, and often the open rate is much, much higher. So here's an example of one of our campaigns. You can see that the open rate on the very first email is 85.7%. Now, can I say that the email deliverability is terrible now in my account if when I send broadcasts, the open rate is only 8%? Absolutely not. So what happens is when someone opts in, they know they're going to get an email. They go to their inbox, they open it. So you're going to have your highest open rate on the very first email that you send someone immediately after opt-in. That's going to give you a baseline, not truly deliverability, right? But it's going to give you a baseline of your open rate and maybe even your click rate. And then you want to watch that over time. Look at the sequence that they go into right after opting in and see where the drop-offs are. When does that start to decline drastically, and what's going on, and what can we change about the message or the way we engage with people? People get what we call email fatigue. If we send them too much email or not valuable content, or we don't email them for a long time and then we come back, well, they're not as likely to respond in all of those situations. And so we want to make sure that when we're trying to figure out our deliverability, we're looking at a true measure, which is the very first thing that happens. Over time, people get used to seeing your emails in their inbox. They start to ignore you for whatever reason. Maybe they've opted out. There's all kinds of things, right, that affect all this. So look at the very first email that you send people when they opt in, and that will tell you whether you're getting really bad deliverability or not. I'm telling you, after looking at this for many, many of our clients, it's generally in the 85 to 98% or even better sometimes. And so what this tells me is Infusionsoft is doing its job. It's sending the emails and getting them to the people who want them. Now, whether or not they open them, whether or not they end up in the spam folder or the promotions folder, that's up to me and my content and the way that I deliver it. Okay, next step, improve engagement with clicks and replies. Now, these email providers are getting really savvy. They recognize that if someone clicks an email, they probably like that email. And therefore, we should have that email end up in the inbox and maybe not in the promotions folder. And maybe even more importantly, if someone replies to an email and they have a back and forth conversation, then that email or emails in the future from that person, from that sender, might end up in the inbox instead of the promotions folder or spam folder at a higher rate. So I would encourage you to get people to reply. I will occasionally send emails with an open-ended question asking people to reply for this purpose, and that is to get them to reply so that my emails in the future end up in the inbox at a higher rate. So here's an email I recently sent, and you can see that I asked specifically, would you please reply to this email and let me know the answer to the following question: what's your biggest Infusionsoft related challenge right now? And when people reply to that email, the email providers take note. And then I reply back and they take note again that now we're having a real conversation. And when there's real engagement through clicks and replies, the email providers are more likely to let my emails end up in the inbox. Okay, last step here is to slip through the filters. And so what we want to do here is every once in a while send a plain text email. So when you go into Infusionsoft and you go to send a broadcast, you see that little green drop down, choose the option that says send email classic. So we don't want to use the new email builder here. We want to send email classic. The reason is the new email builder sends a multi-part email. It sends an HTML and a plain text version of the email, and we want to send plain text only. So we need to use classic, and then once we get into the classic builder, at this step, we're going to choose this option here that says plain text, no graphics. So we don't want the HTML option on the left or the HTML and plain text on the right. We want that one in the middle that says plain text, and that means plain text only. So there's a couple of drawbacks to sending plain text email, and that is, one, you can't track open rates because there's no way to put an image in there and have it track the open of that image or the loading of that image, and that's how opens are typically tracked. And also, you can't format the text. So you got to use your own, ways to kind of call things out and whatever in that plain text email. So those are the drawbacks, but the benefits are a plain text email is going to be more likely to end up in the inbox versus the promotions folder by nature of the fact that it's plain text. And the filters are often looking for the nice, pretty looking, designed promotional emails to end up in the promotions folder. So every once in a while, I'll send an open-ended email asking for a reply. Every once in a while, I'll send a plain text email. These things will more often end up in the inbox, and I want to utilize them to get engagement because engagement will help future emails end up in the inbox as well. So enjoy these tips. Go implement them right now in your business, and let me know how things are going.